Hi, I'm Charity Harris, and I'm going to tell you about a book called Bud, Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. This book, Bud, Not Buddy, is written by Christopher Paul Curtis, was published by Delacorte Books, has 19 chapters, and is 245 pages long. This book is about an 11-year-old brown-skinned boy named Bud, not Buddy. His story takes place in 1936, Flint, Michigan, where he's living in an orphanage. Bud starts his first adventure with a new placement in a foster home that he's not looking forward to. His first welcome by his older foster brother is to be woken up by having a pencil shoved up his nose as far as it will go, which of course results in a fight between the two. This lands him his first night being locked up in the shed overnight. Bud's fear of the monsters in the shed causes him to attack one of them hanging from the ceiling. However, he soon finds out that it's not a monster, it is a hornet's nest. Well, the hornets come out in a rage attacking Bud, and he has to break a window to escape the shed and escape the hornets. And that's when Bud decides that he's going to go on the lam. With nowhere to go, Bud decides to look for his friend Miss Hill at the library, only to find out that she's gotten married and moved to Chicago. After figuring out that this is way too far a distance for him to travel on foot, Bud decides to head out west with his friend Bugs to pick fruit. They spend some time trying to find what's called a Hooverville, and when they do find Hooverville, they're very surprised to find that it's not an actual town, but a collection of tents and shacks out in the woods. They're welcomed by the people in the Hooverville and are fed some dinner, but the plan to head west does not last long because Bud ends up missing the train and has to part ways with his friend Bugs. So it's at this point that Bud decides to go find his father. Bud's mother had left him several flyers advertising a mysterious band leader named Herman E. Calloway that Bud just knows is his father. So Bud sets out walking to Grand Rapids, Michigan at night and is picked up by a kind man named Lefty who's on his way to Flint. At first, Bud is terrified that this man is a vampire because he sees blood in the back of Lefty's car that Lefty is delivering to a hospital in Flint, Michigan. But after that scare, he becomes worried that Lefty will return him to the orphanage in Flint, Michigan. So Bud tells Lefty that he ran away from home in Grand Rapids in the hopes that Lefty will take him back, and it works. Bud finds Herman E. Calloway and the Dusky Devastators of the Depression. To his surprise, Bud finds that Herman E. Calloway is very old and very grumpy. The band takes him in, although not really believing Bud's story that Mr. Calloway is his father. It's not until after a gig with the band that Bud finds Mr. Calloway carries around in his car the same rocks that Bud was left by his mother. As it turns out, Mr. Calloway is Bud's grandfather, and the reason that they both have the same rocks is because when Mr. Calloway would go on gigs in different cities with his band, he would always bring back a rock with the date on it from that city and give it to his daughter. So in the end, Bud finally finds family and a place to belong. The reason I chose this book is because its author is a person of color and its main character is a person of color. The school I work at has a diverse population, and it is important for students of color to be able to read texts that have characters that they can identify with. Another reason I chose this book is because it's a historical fiction that takes place during the Depression, so it would be a good read alongside a social studies unit on the Depression. Or another option would be to read it alongside with The Watsons Go to Birmingham 1963 to be able to compare and contrast two stories and discuss the differing experiences of different groups of people during the civil rights movement. Christopher Paul Curtis, the author of Bud Not Buddy, was born in Flint, Michigan, the second of 5 siblings. Upon graduating high school, he immediately enrolled in the University of Michigan, as well as getting a job at the Fisher Body Plant No. 1 Curtis and his partner at the plant took turns every 30 minutes installing doors on cars, and in his breaks, Curtis started writing short stories that began his career as a children's author. Curtis published his first novel in 1999 entitled The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963, and then Bud Not Buddy followed in 1999 and was awarded the Newbery Award and the Coretta Scott King Award. The characters in Bud Not Buddy were not totally fictional, as Herman E. Calloway was based on Curtis's paternal grandfather, Herman E. Curtis, who was in fact a band leader most of his life and who was for a time in a group called the Dusky Devastators of the Depression. Lefty Lewis, the character who picks Bud up off the side of the road and takes him to Grand Rapids, is based on Curtis's maternal grandfather, Earl Lefty Lewis, who worked as one of the few red caps at the Grand Rapids train station during much of the Depression. Other novels published by Curtis are Bucking the Sarge, Mr. Chicky's Funny Money, Mr. Chicky's Messy Mission, Elijah of Buxton, The Mighty Miss Malone, and The Madman of Piney Woods. Curtis now lives with his wife and 2 children in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. That's all. I hope you enjoy the book. Thank you.